In Memoriam, a tribute to legendary actor James Caan, who passed away last week at the age of 82. The prolific and incredibly talented actor leaves behind an impressive resume of amazing roles for us to cherish for a lifetime. Formative years giving him material to draw from. James Caan was born, as many of the legends of Hollywood were, in New York, specifically the lively borough of the Bronx, to Jewish immigrant parents from Germany in 1940. Caan's family stayed and raised him and his two siblings in the New York City area, where he attended school. After completing high school in New York, Caan found himself in unfamiliar territory attending college at Michigan State University. Caan wasn't long for the dreary environment in the Midwest and found himself quickly back in New York, transferring to Long Island's Hofstra University after his first 2 years at Michigan State. Caan never graduated from college, but some would argue he accomplished something even more important during his time there, sharing a classroom with Francis Ford Coppola, the director who would ultimately lead to launching his incredible career. With Caan clearly not necessarily having an affinity for the traditional ways of learning, he sought a different path for himself. His passion and interest for acting were developed at Hofstra, and he applied for, interviewed for, and was eventually accepted into the New York City neighborhood Playhouse School of Theater. Caan would spend the next 5 years studying at the Playhouse, under the tutelage of legendary acting teacher Sanford Meisner, who Meisner's technique would ultimately play a large role in helping Caan develop his acting style. Caan continued to hone his craft at the theater, and eventually found himself getting opportunities in stage acting in off-Broadway plays such as La Ronde. His biggest break to date came in his casting in the Broadway debut Blood, Sweat, and Stanley Pool, finding his footing. After some success on the Broadway stage in theater acting, Caan received another tremendous opportunity from his old Hofstra classmate, Francis Ford Coppola. Caan was cast as the role of Killer in the small yet intense directorial debut for Coppola, The Rain People.
I want you to talk to me.
But you had no right.
A heavy and contained drama, Caan plays a critical role by joining Shirley Knight's character of Natalie on a road trip as she sets out to find herself away from her husband. A film that was largely misunderstood in its time, it stands out now as a prime example of Caan's raw acting talent and ability.
Thought you were gone, Sarah.
My name isn't Sarah, it's Natalie.
It also notably saw him share a set for the first time with not only Coppola, but his fellow eventual The Godfather co-star, Robert Duvall. As most of the great actors do, Caan found himself taking on a myriad of roles in television as he tried to get his name out there. He was featured in episodes of television series such as Play of the Week, Route 66, Alcoa Premiere, Dr. Kildare, The Untouchables, The Doctors and the Nurses, Death Valley Days, Wide Country, and Combat.
Soll ich gehen? Eine Minute. Wir sind hier. Ja?
A prolific body of television work behind him, Caan was offered a life-changing role that would help cement his legacy as one of the greats. Naturally burnt out and feeling the stress of being typecast as a television actor, Caan initially rejected the offer he received to play the part of Brian Piccolo in the TV movie Brian's Song.
Oh, here's to Wake Forest, finest red ruddy reddish field to the brim.
Caan did not want to return to television for fear that he would never be able to break out into a bona fide movie star if he did. However, after being blown away by the incredible script telling the story of the friendship between the dying Piccolo and his Bears teammate Gale Sayers, played by Billy D. Williams, the film turned out to be a hit, with critics and audiences praising the acting by both men and their chemistry and ability to elicit the feeling of the real-life friendship between the two men. An offer he couldn't refuse in mainstream success. After absolutely knocking it out of the park in Brian's Song, Caan's next adventure would be the one for which he would become synonymous in his career. Reuniting with Coppola once again, Caan was cast as the hot-headed Sonny Corleone in what some consider to be the greatest film of all time, The Godfather.
We'll have to suffer, all right? Hey, listen, do me a favor, Tom. No more advice on how to patch things up. Just help me win, please, all right?
Caan's legacy became directly tied to the success and acting bravado he puts on full display in the film, announcing himself as fully capable of balancing action, grit, and love in every scene he is a part of. As much of the film is centered on Al Pacino's Michael, Caan is ready and able to steal the scene in a blink. He masterfully plays the undermined and aggressive eldest brother and stands out amongst the brilliant cast. Caan, Pacino, and Duvall would all be nominated for Best Supporting Actor for their work in The Godfather. Caan's portrayal of Sonny Corleone became so realistic that the role followed him around outside of the film. He went on record stating multiple times that he would be refused service places and was even picked up by federal agents for believing him to be an actual member of an organized crime family.
Sonny, doing what he did because it was all for family.
Off the success of Brian's song and The Godfather, Caan found himself a legitimate, in-demand movie star. He owls continue a prolific movie career throughout the 1970s, playing key roles in Slither, Cinderella Liberty, The Gambler, Freebie and the Bean, Funny Lady, Rollerball, The Killer Elite, Harry and Walter Go to New York, and A Bridge Too Far. While he continued to find success at securing roles, Caan started to become disillusioned with the projects he was taking on. He continued trying to take on roles he felt would make him a more commercially viable actor, but in the process started to lose himself as an actor in his opinion. To that end, Caan took a leap by going over to France to work on the French film Another Man, Another Chance by the French auteur Claude Deloche. Caan praised the experience and did it for very little money. A mere passion project for him to reconnect with his acting sensibilities and to remove himself from the Hollywood grind.
Yes, I
do. To close out the 1970s, Caan completed and released his directorial debut, Hide in Plain Sight, which was considered well-received by critics, but did not fully connect with audiences. A masterful third act. After admittedly having a very difficult time struggling in the 1980s from Hollywood burnout and depression after losing his sister to a battle with cancer, Caan made a roaring comeback in the 1990s and 2000s. His next major return to big screen prominence came in the way of Rob Reiner's adaptation of the Stephen King novel Misery, alongside Kathy Bates in one of the most memorable roles of his career.
See, it's crassable bond and it smudges. So I thought maybe if you...
He next ripped off an impressive run of starring turns in films like The Program, Honeymoon in Vegas, For the Boys, Flesh and Bone, Bottle Rocket, A Boy Called Hate with his son Scott, Eraser, Bulletproof, and Mickey Blue Eyes. In each of these films, Caan found his own heavyweight acting talents paired up with other brilliant actors such as Bette Midler, Hugh Grant, Adam Sandler, Damon Wayans, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Caan brought his legendary talent to each film, parking up with the biggest stars of the modern day, a testament in his own right to his ability and his impact on the newest generation of actors that they would want to work alongside him. Caan's prolific work continued into the 2000s, with roles in The Yards, Lucky Town, The Way of the Gun, Dogville, and perhaps most notably of them all, Elf.
I walked all day and night to find you.
You look like you came from the North Pole.
That's exactly where I came from.
In retrospect, to imagine that Sonny Corleone himself would have signed on to play the biological father of Will Ferrell's Buddy the Elf is something way beyond amazing. One of the most beloved Christmas movies and comedies in its own right, Caan brings his usual gruff masculinity to the part of Walter Hobbs, while also balancing out the ability to pitch perfectly, play comedy off of Ferrell, and allow Buddy to open up his heart. Silly a movie as Elf is, Caan's part has always stood out to me as incredibly important and integral to making the movie work. It's one of those roles that feels like it was perfectly cast and could have only ever been Caan to play the part. Caan continued making films and appearing in TV shows in the last 15 years, starring in the series Las Vegas and the films Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Get Smart, Detachment, Henry's Crime, That's My Boy, Small Apartments, A Fighting Man, The Outsider, and his final film, which was 2021's Queen Bees. He was also seen in posthumous release of the film Fast Charlie. James Caan was a brilliant and voracious actor right up until the very end, still working on films into his 80s. He leaves behind an incredible body of work dating back over 50 years, and his work stands out as a great example of an actor continuously working to hone their craft. He will be sorely missed, but I know I, for one, am going to be spending a good amount of the next month diving into this master of his craft's work.